Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, do you need or even want Medicare? Medicare Part B specifically when you retire. It costs extra money, but why do so many people do it? When does it make sense? When does it not make sense? That's what we're going to dive into today so that you as a Fed, you know exactly how to get the most out of your health insurance now and throughout retirement. Now, if you're new to the channel, so good to have you. My name is Dallin Hawes. I'm a financial planner, and I help Feds with this kind of thing all the time. So if you're thinking about retirement, this is the channel for you. Now, here's the first question. If you didn't know, by the way, Medicare is a government program that all Americans can enroll in when you are 65 plus. And some Americans have to enroll. Not all federal employees, but some do. Here are the federal employees that stereotypically have to enroll in Medicare Part B. Okay? And that is if you're on TRICARE. If you are in TRICARE, so if you're a military veteran, you have TRICARE, then if you want to keep your TRICARE, they require Medicare Part B. So if you're on TRICARE, this video is obsolete. You have to do it, okay? If you are a USPS employee, so you work for the Postal Service, they have rules. Basically, if you retire after certain dates, then yes, you are required to get on Medicare. So USPS, and if you're on TRICARE, they are required to. Other than that, though, which most federal employees don't fall under those buckets, other than that, you do not have to. You are not required to be on Medicare unless you want to. And while this video is not going to be a complete tutorial on how Medicare works, let me give you the most critical things about Medicare that you need to know as a Fed. Medicare has 4 different parts, A, B, C, D. Okay? A, B, C, D. Let me show you the important ones. Number 1, Medicare Part A is free. You've paid into the system your entire career, coming out of your paychecks. There's always been a line item to pay for Medicare, and so you get Medicare A for free. So regardless, there's almost no reason not to get on Medicare A when you turn 65. Working or not, I would probably get on Medicare A because it's free. Why not? Part B is the one that we're going to be talking about today because it's not free. There is a premium attached, and we'll talk about when it makes sense and when it doesn't make sense. Part C is normally a supplement plan, advantage plan. Long story short, most Feds do not need this because your government insurance, your FEHB, normally fills that role. So normally you do not need C. And Part D is for prescription drugs. Long story short, unless you have very, very high prescription drugs, it does not make sense to be on Part D because Part D has an extra premium as well. So unless you have very specific high-cost premium prescription drugs, I wouldn't even look into Part D, but I would if you have very high, again, prescription drug costs. You could look into Part D, but generally speaking, most Feds do not need Part D because your FEHB, your government plan, has great prescription drug coverage, okay? So really, again, because Medicare A is free and C and D you don't need, it's really B. That's the question, is do we want Part B? Now, the reason it's a question is because right now it costs about $180 per month per person. So if you're on it and your spouse, that's $180 for both of you. The cost can be quite high, right? So why on earth would you do this? Again, you don't have to. And if you wanted to, you can just opt out of Part B, not get on it, just stay on your own health insurance, have Medicare A, and go off into the sunset. You can definitely do that. Is an option. However, why do so many Feds take Part B? Let me explain why. First, if you have Medicare A, Medicare B, and an FEHB plan, generally speaking, the coverage is fantastic. Medicare becomes primary in retirement, and they pick up the vast majority of expenses. Anything they don't pick up, your FEHB plan, your government plan, picks up, and normally most FEHB plans will waive out-of-pocket costs like copays, deductibles, etc., coinsurance. And so generally, you're going into retirement, which in retirement, we tend to have, if you're going to have medical expenses, it's probably going to happen in retirement. And you have fantastic coverage going into retirement, which is great. So yes, the premiums are higher because you got to pay for Medicare Part B and your FEHB premiums. And by the way, your FEHB plan, even though they become secondary, they do not change your premiums. You still have the same premiums. However, there are some plans that play nice with Medicare. What I mean by that is they will actually help reimburse the cost of Medicare Part B. For example, Blue Cross Basic, Blue Cross Blue Shield, which I know many of you have Blue Cross Blue Shield. I talked to enough feds to know most feds have Blue Cross. Blue Cross has a plan, Blue Cross Basic, that pays, at least as of right now, $800 per year per person to help reimburse the cost. So does it cover this entire cost? No, but it covers a good chunk of it, which is nice. And they will, of course, waive copays, deductibles, coinsurance, etc. And so the coverage is great. You have very little out-of-pocket costs. And after this reimbursement, the premiums aren't that bad. And there's other plans like Aetna Direct. There's other plans out there that actually have higher reimbursements for Medicare. So you can check out. Aetna's got some great plans. Blue Cross has some great plans. GEHA has some great plans. You can check out these plans. Okay, what are the perks for being on Medicare? And you can call just your current plan provider, whether Blue Cross or GEHA or Aetna or Kaiser. You can say, if I did get on Medicare, how would the coverage change? What would you guys do for me, right? And they can talk you through how it would work. Now, a couple things to note. Medicare Part B is generally not the sort of thing. Some people, let me actually give an example. Some people say, look, I don't know if I need Medicare Part B or not, but I just don't want to pay the premiums. So I'm going to opt out for now. And that's totally fine. Again, you can do that. So let's say you turn 65, you're retired, and say, look, I'm just going to opt out. I'm not worried about Medicare. Totally fine. You don't have to do it. However, if you ever wanted to get back into Part B, let's say you waited 10 years. Now you are 75 years old, and you waited 10 years, and now you said, actually this health thing came up. I want to have additional coverage. I want Medicare Part B. You can get on it. You can then jump in. But for every year you could have enrolled but didn't, there's a 10% penalty per year. So 10% per year. If you waited 10 years, that's 100%, meaning your premiums are double the normal because you waited the 10 years. So generally speaking, Medicare Part B is one of those things where you want to know what you want going in. If you wait, it's just going to cost you more later. And that's why many people do get on Part B, because they don't know what the future holds. And so they get to say, look, I don't know what I'm going to want, but I'm going to hop on just in case. Now, one scenario that I've seen where Medicare Part B on a regular basis does not make sense is if your income is going to be consistently very, very high throughout retirement. If you didn't know, and I don't have the chart right here in front of me, but if you didn't know, Medicare Part B has brackets, meaning the more income you make, the premiums go up. And as a married couple, if you make less than about $200,000 or so, you're in the lowest premium set, okay, which is about $180 per month. But if you make more than that, the premiums start going up. And they go up to as much as about $600 per month per person. So it can get exceptionally expensive for higher earners. So if you're a really high earner, you can, if you just Google Medicare Part B cost chart, you'll find it. There's a chart that shows you exactly what premiums would be based on your income. If your income is in the lowest bracket, Medicare, in most cases, it's probably worth it. Obviously, I don't know your situation, your health expenses, your current FEHB plan, the providers. There's so many things I don't know, but generally speaking, if you're in the lowest Medicare Part B bracket and you're paying the lowest premium, it probably makes sense. However, as your income starts going up, then it's going to cost more and it's going to make less and less sense. If you have to pay $1,200 a month extra for you and your spouse to be on it, it gets a lot less attractive. So I hope that's helpful. Hope that gives you some things to think about when getting on or thinking about Medicare as a federal employee. So I hope that's helpful. I'll see you guys in the next video.